here. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy evening, especially late on the East Coast, to spend some time with myself, with the team here at MzeroA.com to learn more about in-flight emergencies, to learn really the anatomy of an emergency and what causes it and the psychology really behind it. A topic we're going to chat a lot about this evening is this idea of pilot-induced emergencies. Realizing that, and what I want you to walk away from this knowing is that engines don't just happen to quit. Airplanes don't just magically fall out of the sky. A lot of these in-flight emergencies, most of these emergencies are brought on by us, the pilots, and the poor decision-making that follows. I call it the chain of events of an accident that we really work up to. So without any further ado, let's really dive into this Facebook live stream, and very thankful that you're spending time on this, sharing it with your friends, commenting, everything else. It's just great to be able to share that with you all. So first and foremost, a little bit about myself here. For those of you who don't know, I know there's some people on this live stream, on this webinar, who may not know who I am. I was AOPA's, or named AOPA Outstanding Flight Instructor 3 years in a row now, 2014, 2015, 2016, nearly 10,000 hours of dual given, which is instruction time. And we've helped over 1,200 pilots per month with their written and check ride prep, and really just being a great mentor to those pilots through our online ground school. A little bit about how this works this evening, by the way. Now, what's going to happen is I am going to present, and feel free to ask your questions at any time. I have a separate monitor. It's over here. I can see everything. I see, hey, Jason, Jeff, Melvin, John, Tim. I see all you guys over there. Hey, Clay, good to see you. I got to meet Clay in Atlanta. Andrew, good to see you guys. I can see when you press like and all those thumbs go across the screen, showing me that you like what we're talking about here. That's like maybe applause or something like that. So I appreciate all that. I can see all this sort of stuff. So, this is a great opportunity to reach out to myself. I have Matt sitting over here, Billy sitting over here, Hunter sitting back at his house, Ashley sitting at our house right now, helping you guys moderate these comments, Tom and Larry as well. This MzeroA.com team you've grown to know and love, and most of you guys have got to meet a lot of us at these air shows and trade shows. We're helping you out as well. So do say hi to all those guys and gals as well, and they're going to work to answer your questions, and I'll work to take a bunch of those as well, like Gary, Edgar, Nico, Emerson, Adam, hey Brad, good to see you, hey Andrew, good to see you all. So just very excited to have you all on here this evening. Let's dive into the topic. My goal, by the way, just so you can budget time in your mind, is to spend 30 to 45 minutes really just giving you a ton of value, a ton of great content, and then from there I'll open it up to questions in the Facebook Live, and I'll answer some of those for you all as well. I know it's a busy evening. I know it's late on the East Coast, so let's dive into it now. If you have to leave early, this is all being recorded as well, so don't hesitate to come back and check it out later as well. But thank you for sharing with your friends. Thank you for all those hearts and likes and everything else. I appreciate that. It keeps us going. Lets me know you're paying attention too. I appreciate that a lot. Let's dive into this topic now of what I'm really referring to as pilot-induced emergencies. And Clay and Gary and a lot of you guys who've seen my seminar on those pilot-induced emergencies, you're going to really understand what I'm talking about when I say this. But let's first start with some data. World famous Uncle Larry. The reason he's such an asset to the MzeroA.com team is the man loves data. So Larry, you'll be proud of this. Check out some of this data from our most recent null report, a great report that AOPA puts out. Here it is, our general aviation accident trend from 2004 to 2013. Now, I know it's 2017 now, but they only go out to 2013. 2014 will be coming here soon as well, once we have that update. Look at our accident trend, and you can just follow along with my cursor here. It's, geez, 2004 was a bad year. I mean, look at this. And it's kind of tracked down a little bit, but it's tracked down based on economic times as well. Look at 2007, 2008, we kind of take this dip, and then we kind of stabilize for a bit. We kind of had some more tough economic times, 2011, 2012, and it took a dip, a big dip, as you can see. And really, the accident rate is tied greatly to how we're doing economically with everything as well. So something else to look at when we see this. But for the most part, the accident rate continues to stay relatively flat in a way. How do we continue to add such great technology to the cockpit? G1000 technology. We introduce iPads into the cockpit, yet we still continue to get this, maybe trending downward slightly. We'll see as the economy is rebounding. We'll see what this does to the accident rate here. Let's look at it now as pilots involved in non-commercial fixed wing accidents. Their certification level. This is what's mind-boggling to me. Look at this. You would think, oh, I bet it's all student pilots, right? Well, look at our student pilot numbers here. Only 7% of those accidents were just student pilots only. You would think, man, it's probably that student pilot when they're the sole pilot on board. You would think that was the actual case. But no, step up and look. Private pilots, 45% of the accidents. Stepping up now, commercial pilots, 27% of the accidents. ATP, it's mind-boggling. How about this one? CFI on board. Now keep in mind, this includes single pilots. It could be just the CFI on board. 24% of those accidents had a flight instructor on board. How is it that we have, in those accidents, a quarter of those accidents, a flight instructor was on board? Yet, I would always think when I was paying for my flight lessons and going out to the airport that, man, when I had a flight instructor on board, that's when I was the safest, right? It's not always the case. And sometimes we allow that complacency to really sneak in here. How about the pilot-related accident trend? Now, this is so fascinating here. This is back to that topic of what I just said, pilot-induced emergencies. Of those accidents, how many can we track back to being pilot-related now? Look at your screen with me here again. Look at it. It follows the same kind of trend. But let me do something very interesting now. Watch your screen very closely. I'm going to overlay the accident trend you just saw with the pilot-related accident trend. And watch this. I'll do it slowly here. Is it changing a whole lot, right? That number, that line is really following. It's very similar that the number of accidents that we can track back to being pilot-induced and just general accidents, it's almost 95% of all accidents can be tracked back to the pilot made this mistake. Gone are the days of where it used to be back in the 50s and the 60s and even the 70s, where maintenance was always the issue. It was maintenance and the pilots just dealt with the cards they had at that time, but the pilots are now dealing themselves these certain cards. Let's look at the different scenarios and circumstances these happen under. Look at this. Landing. Now this is all accidents versus fatal accidents here. Landing makes up for it. Now obviously look, 2 fatal accidents, 279 just accidents, right? Fuel management, takeoff and climb. These are the big categories here. Weather is unfortunately top of the fatalities as far as that goes. I'm a big 80-20 principle kind of guy. So if I can, let's combine takeoff and landings. Let's add weather in there because it's such a big part of the fatalities. And then fuel management, which I always think is just ridiculous. It almost shouldn't exist in a way that this problem happens. If we break these down into really 3 categories, 80% of our accidents can be broken down into 3 categories: fuel, weather, and takeoff and landing. If we can work to mitigate risks in these 3 categories, we reduce the accident rate in general aviation. So let's continue here and let's look at each of these step by step here with fuel, with weather, with takeoff, with landing. Let's start with fuel here. Look at the fuel management accident trend here. You followed me. It kind of tracks the same kind of way. Really, again, gosh, 2004 was just a bummer year, wasn't it? 2004 is up here. We take a drop down. We kind of stabilize. We unfortunately increase. Then we take another drop as we come into, 2013 here. But look at the types of fuel management accidents here. They are flight planning is the biggest one. It's not as much system operations is big. But the big one, you would think, like contamination, like water in the fuel, someone putting Jet A in when they should have put 100 low lead in, like these types of things, that's small. The largest category is flight planning. And even systems operation, think of how that can fall back on you, the pilot, too. You've seen it all the time of pilots thinking they're on both when they're really just on the left tank, or thinking they're on both when they're on off, or switching tanks and getting stuck kind of in between the detents. That falls under system operation. And then the flight planning category here is mind-boggling to me when you look at it that way. And something I want you to realize when we look at fuel exhaustion, I joke, and Clay, and those of you who've seen my United Flight 173, we're going to work into that relatively, a quick summary of that here. You know where I'm going with this, that it even happens to the professionals. I always try to say that one thing I never want to have to explain to an NTSB reporter is, why am I on the side of this road? Because I ran out of fuel? That's something I never want to have to justify or explain to someone that, hey, it was my poor pre-flight planning that put us down here on the side of this road. And can you fuel me up and close the road so I can take off and get on out of here? It's a quick way to get a certificate taken away, suspended, revoked, something along those lines, right? Not something I want to deal with. But it even happens to the professionals. And I want to share with you a quick story. Some of you have seen this, so I'll go through it quickly, but it just paints such a picture of fuel exhaustion even happening to the professionals. You see, when the NTSB and the FAA showed up at the accident of United Flight 173, they asked one simple question. How does an airplane run out of fuel in VFR conditions inside of the airport? And if I started this presentation with that single statement right there, you'd say, well, how does that happen, Jason? Run out of fuel, VFR conditions inside of the airport. That's mind-boggling to me how that could really even happen. But let me put you in the shoes of that crew real quick, and I'll do a quick summary version of this. Then we'll talk about some weather and some other types of related accidents. But let's start with this United Flight 173 as an example here. Knowing now that you know what's going to happen. Let's start with our crew here. Our crew starts with Captain Malburn McBroom. And look at this with me here. World War II veteran, 27-year United captain, 27,000 flight hours. Doesn't this look and sound like the kind of person you would want to be your flight instructor when you see a resume like that? 27,000 flight hours. Wouldn't you think that, geez, after a certain amount of time, you just stop having accidents, right? Like you feel like you're invincible maybe. Well, that's a dangerous mindset to have, that, every single hour is so important to treat just the same moving forward. Yet this entire accident of running out of fuel in VFR conditions inside of the airport surrounds Captain McBroom. His first officer, 13 years with United, 5,500 flight hours. His flight engineer, 11 years with United, 3,300 flight hours. Our flight was a routine route for them from JFK with a quick stopover in Denver and continuing on to Portland. You see, it's this route from Denver to Portland where the chain of events really starts for our pilots. How much fuel, let me ask you a question here. How much fuel do you need VFR day, let's say? How much fuel do you need in your airplane VFR day? Okay, and I'll let you guys type some answers in here. And then let's take that a step further to add to that. What does that much fuel look like in your airplane? So VFR day, I need how much fuel here? Matt, if you can maybe scroll, or I can scroll down. Sorry, here. Let's see some of these here, so I can give some people some good praise here. I need praise. Let me get scrolling here. Thank you, Andrew, Matt, hey, Brennan, Wayne, Eric, Pilot PJ, good name. Awesome, Whitney. Yeah, I see it. I see it, absolutely. So I need my 30 minutes of fuel, right? What does that look like in your airplane? A few gallons? That's nothing. The fuel light is on, it's flashing, it's time to land, silly, is what it's saying at that point, right? Well, United Flight 173, when they stopped in Denver, did kind of just that. They got enough fuel to be legal, and enough fuel to be legal by not only FAA standards, but plus just a little bit to meet what United had set up as their standards, and then took off. But you see, when you flight plan, just to the minimums. Enough to fly to my destination plus 30 minutes, as y'all say, right? And then maybe a little extra, so maybe our VFR night minimums, let's say, 45 minutes of fuel, and a situation arises, such as a landing gear issue in this case, you find yourself with an interesting situation. Let's look at the chain of events of this accident, then I'll show you the accident as it unfolds. It starts with a landing gear issue. You see, United Flight 173 was really the only plane around Portland that evening. They're flying into the Portland airport. They're 20 miles out. They get switched over to Tower. Tower says, listen, it's just you, straight on in, you're already cleared to land 20 miles out into a major airport. You know an airport's slow when that's when they clear you 20 miles out, right? So they go through their before landing checklist, and they're going through it. They get to the part where they lower the landing gear, and they just hear a loud bang noise. And it was that kind of noise where you look at each other and did you hear that? Did you hear? You never like loud noises in the cockpit, right? But it's one of those noises that everybody heard. The entire cabin behind them heard it as well. They look at the lights and they're waiting for 3 green lights, 3 green lights. Please, 3 green lights. They don't get it. They get 3 red lights in that case. Now, on the time, on these DC-8s, you can go back and actually on top of the wing, a little nodule will pop up to tell you that the mains are down, locked, and straight. So the flight engineer at this point has to get up, walk back through the cabin, and everybody just heard this with his flashlight saying, excuse me, passengers, as he shines his flashlight out onto the wing to say, yes, that's up. That wheel's down, locked, and straight. Comes over to the other side, looks out there. Yes, that's up. I know my mains are down, locked, and straight. What we didn't know was the nose, which brings us to our next chain of events. The captain now has a failure to see beyond it. The captain gets obsessed with this landing gear issue. Meanwhile, his crew is trying to share with him a very important message, that we are getting dangerously low on fuel. Yet they fail to share that message because this is at a time in the late 70s where I'm the captain and what I say goes. There wasn't a lot of crew resource management. And this ultimately leads us to our accident here. Let's go ahead and let's review this now together. The MzeroA.com team here put a wonderful simulation together that you can see on your screen. We leave New York. We head over for a stopover in Denver. Some passengers get on, some passengers get off. We continue on to Portland. In Denver, though, we take on some fuel. We take on 46,000 pounds of the required 32,000 pounds of fuel, which sounds like a lot, but we're talking less than an hour extra of fuel. You can see it's a relatively VFR night as we're coming in. Portland has already cleared us to land. We're this far out. As we go through this last little wispy layer here inside of the airport, we're cleared onto the visual. At this point, they do their before landing checklist, lower the flaps, lower the landing gear, and at this point, they hear that loud bang, and they wonder, is the gear down? You and I can see outside that, yes, it is down locked. What happened was it was actually a hydraulic actuator issue, that normally gravity and hydraulic pressure works to bring that gear down. But in this case, it wasn't there, and it just came slamming down. And that sound, that vibration they felt was it slamming and locking into place and breaking our switches, still giving us 3 red lights. United Flight 173 does the right thing. Let's hold out here for a bit. Let's work to really troubleshoot this issue and see what we can come up with. So it's about this point they go ahead and they send the flight engineer on back through the cabin. And the flight engineer is walking as they go, and they're making this nice, like a triangular shape. You can see Portland at the top of your screen there. They're making this triangular shaped holding pattern around the Portland area. As the flight engineer now goes back and comes back with a report and says, listen, I can see the indicators on top of the wings. We know for a fact at least the main gear is down, locked, and straight. So we know that for a fact here. So now we're going and we start to have a discussion here, as you can see. The captain is going to reach out to the flight attendant and says, okay, what would you do? Have you got any suggestions about when to brace? You want to do it over the PA? Flight attendant comes back and says, well, I'll be honest with you, I've never had one of these before. This is my first emergency. As they turn back towards the Portland airport. You'd think maybe they'll land now, maybe they'll make another lap in the pattern. But now the discussion of fuel starts to come out loud as the first officer is kind of just thinking out loud. How much fuel do we have? He says. Flight engineer comes back and says 5,000. Wait till you see this reaction here. Give us a current card on weight figure. About another 15 minutes, says the captain here. The captain saying, give us an extra 15 minutes of fuel. I think your calculations are off, is kind of what he's saying here. Flight engineer says, 15 minutes? No way. Captain, yeah, give us 3,000 or 4,000 pounds on top of zero fuel weight. Flight engineer says, it's not enough. 15 minutes is gonna really run us low on fuel here. He's saying your imaginary 15 minutes are gonna run us too close on fuel. You can't just pull fuel out of the sky and add it to your tanks. It doesn't work that way, is what he's trying to say. But they're having this discussion. But they're turning towards the airport now. You would think they have to land at this case. As they come on in, we're going to continue to see this discussion here. Captain says, just take another walk through the cabin. Make sure everyone's fine. Let them know another 10 minutes or so. As United Flight 173 turns away. Flight engineer, we've got 3,000 in the fuel. That's it, 3,000 pounds. Captain, okay, on touchdown, if the gear really folds or something jumps the track, get those boost pumps off so that, hey, you might even get the valves open. He's obsessed with this gear issue while the crew is trying to alert him about a fuel issue. They complete the turn. You've got to think they have to land this time. Captain, hey, there's one check we missed. What? The landing gear warning horn. Let's go ahead. Let's test the breaker. Let's try the throttles at idle or the flaps past 35 to test. Hey, pull that breaker and reset it. Obsessed with this gear issue here. First officer, we're going to lose an engine. Captain, why? We're losing an engine. Why? Fuel. We finally have the captain's attention now, don't we? Captain, open up the cross feeds. Flight engineer says, I'm showing fumes. The captain, I'm showing 1,000 or better. Flight engineer, I don't think it's in there. First officer, it just flamed out as United Flight 173 is now turning towards the Portland airport. Flight engineer, we're going to lose number 3, engine number 3 in a minute 2. Captain, we got 1,000 pounds. We have to. First officer, we had 5,000, buddy, but we lost it. Captain, do we have fuel pressure? Flight engineer, all cross feeds open. Captain's last words. Hey, reset that circuit breaker and see if we get any gear warning horns, any gear indications. This captain is obsessed with this landing gear issue as United Flight 173 descends 8 miles short of the airport into a Portland suburb. And just so you can see, there's some images here for you too on your screen. There was no post-accident fire because there was no fuel on board to actually even start that fire here. Some more images you can see here. Look at this with me. See if you can see this with my cursor over here. Here's the tail section. I mean, we're just missed this road and everything else, and these homes here. I'll zoom in just a little bit so you can see it better here. You can kind of see the power lines caught on the tail right there. And again, imagine when the NTSB shows up, when the FAA shows up, they ask one simple question. How does an airplane run out of fuel in VFR conditions inside of the airport? And I share this story with you because it is somewhat shocking. You think, wow, I mean, people paid $300, $400, $500 a ticket to be on this airplane, to have this experienced crew fly them to where they're supposed to. And yet even professionals with 27,000 flight hours make mistakes. And none of us should ever be feeling so invulnerable that, oh, it can't happen to us, because it can. Flight planning was the largest category that made that up. How can we get better at flight planning? I'll share with you one way I do it, and then maybe you guys can share some with me. What are some things you guys do in your flight planning to have better fuel management? One of the things I do personally is I have a hard limit of 3 hours. From the moment the engine starts, I start a clock. That engine needs to shut down before 3 hours. I will not fly start to stop longer than 3 hours. And I know I have a 15-minute taxi at both places, so there's 30 minutes right there. I'm really only flying for 2.5 hours. I mean, listen, can anyone really sit in an airplane and fly it that long for 3 hours anyways? It's nice to get out, stretch your legs, see a new airport, meet new people, go to a new FBO, whatever it may be, stop and fuel up the airplane. I'll never forget doing the Good Pilot tour that I was leaving Ann Arbor, Michigan. We had just dropped off Larry. We were going down actually to Louisville, Kentucky, and the weather was bad, so we had to divert. And then the next airport they sent us to, we had to divert. We diverted like 3 or 4 different times. And eventually the controller came on and said, hey, 59 Quebec, how you doing on fuel? I'm just getting a little worried after all these diversions you made. I remember saying back to him, like, we're doing fine. Like, I planned for this. I only fly 3-hour legs, so I know my airplane holds 4.5 hours of fuel. So I know I have that flexibility that if a situation arises, and I can't predict weather, right? If I have to divert, I have that in my bag of tricks. So just something to add here. Leah said, fills up every time. Air Force is paying. I like that. That is good use of our tax dollars. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Just reading some of these here. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Wesley says, plan short routes, do fuel stops so you never run out of fuel. Again, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Clay says, sticks the tanks and recalculates at every stop. Take on as much fuel as weight and balance will allow. You've heard the joke of mine before, Clay, since we've known each other a while now, that the only time you have too much fuel is when you're on fire, right? I mean, geez, fill up, obviously within weight and balance reasons, but fill that airplane up. If we could just get rid of the fuel-related accidents, that accident trend would continue and really actually even start to go down. Let's talk now about the other big one, the one that leads the category of fatalities, and that is weather. Look at your screen here with me for a moment. Weather accident trend. This one, unfortunately, like I said, the fatalities, the dark blue here, is right up with it, as you can see here. What's the biggest one here? It's not what you would think. Thunderstorms. I mean, thunderstorms are 4 for 4 on fatalities, though. Poor IFR technique, 5 for 5 on fatalities. Leading the category, though, is VFR into IMC. Weather-related accidents have the highest rate of these fatalities, as you can see. So why do we as pilots keep putting ourselves in these poor situations? How can we work now to just avoid it? How can we have our hard set personal minimums so this isn't an issue? Let me share something with you. And again, if you've seen me speak live in person before, you've heard this before. But one thing I always try to teach is that you can learn exactly what an NTSB report is about by reading the first sentence. And we have a thing here. I don't have too much time to get into it here. I want to respect your time. But we say to ourselves when we believe one another in the MzeroA.com team while we're flying is doing something dangerous, we say, hey, Matt, this sounds like the start of an NTSB report. We both stop and go, okay, let's assess this. Let's look for the chain of events of an accident. Here's what I mean. Let me show you an example related to weather here. I'm going to read you a sentence. You comment here and tell me what this NTSB report we're about to review is exactly about. The non-instrument rated pilot departed for a night cross-country flight while instrument conditions existed at the departure airport. You heard me say that. Now let's hear it from you guys. What am I about to share here? If I tell you the non-instrument rated pilot departed for a night cross-country flight while instrument conditions existed at the departure airport, you can read the first sentence of an NTSB report and go, I know exactly where this is going. This, to me, sounds like, I like what Mike said. Mike goes, that's illegal. Andrew, another Mike, VFR into IMC. Yeah, absolutely. Brian says, absolutely, that's great. That's great, Brian. Yeah, hey, Nick, good to see you. VFR into IMC. You are spot on. When you read something like that and you read the non-instrument rated pilot departed while instrument conditions, I love Mike who just said that's just illegal. There's no like, am I going, am I not going? It's more like running a red light. Like, it's illegal. We don't do that. So what is this about? Well, look at your screen with me here. It's about, like you said, VFR into IMC. It's about flying beyond your personal minimums. And we know it's ultimately going to be about probably spatial disorientation. Let's read that NTSB report here together. The non-instrument rated pilot departed for a night cross-country flight while instrument conditions existed at the departure airport. The pilot called ground. Listen to this. Tell me, do any red flags jump out to you here? The pilot called ground and requested and received from air traffic control a special VFR clearance. Let me stop there. Who here can tell me what's wrong with this slide right here based on the information we have so far? We're breaking one rule, right? By just going, I'm VFR only, I'm going in IFR conditions. I just broke another rule right here though. Which rule is that here? I'll see if I get a right answer here. Called up and requested a special VFR clearance called up to ground. Let's see. Thank you, Nelson. You are correct. Absolutely. Special VFR at night. What is required to request special VFR at night? An IFR or an instrument rating is required, right? And it's not like ATC when you call up and request, hey, I know it's IFR, I'm going to request a special VFR. It's not like they're going to call you back and say, oh, please tell me your name and your certificate number, and I'm going to look that up. No, they're going to take your word for it. It's not their job to be the detective and make sure you're following the rules with everything. They don't know whether you have an instrument rating or not. But special VFR at night, there's a lot of things. Your airplane has to be IFR equipped. You have to be IFR rated and current and everything else. As you can see here, we've broken 2 rules right off the bat. Let's keep reading this NTSB report. Follow along with me here on your screen. After departure, the airplane was observed on radar climbing to an altitude of 2,400 feet above mean sea level. Approximately 1 minute prior to the last radar return, ATC cleared the accident flight on course, and the clearance was acknowledged by the pilot. Subsequently, radar data indicated the airplane began a 180-degree right turn, and its altitude decreased from 2,400 feet to 0 feet in about 12 seconds. The last radar return was located in the immediate vicinity of the accident location. To go from 2,400 feet MSL to 0 feet, doesn't take a math wizard here, that's 12,000 feet per minute. That's someone who really got themselves in a tough spot, isn't it? And the flight didn't, most of these VFR and IMC flights don't make it that far. When you depart beyond your personal minimums, breaking 2 regulations right off the bat, special VFR just taking off in that day, and put yourself in that situation. Who here, by the way, and I imagine hopefully it's a lot of you here, has ever flown, legally please, into a cloud before? Legally. Because listen, there is such a difference, by the way, I just want to make this point here, such a difference between flying under the hood and doing the real thing, simulated an actual IFR time. So if you are an instrument rated pilot or pursuing an instrument rating, please, with your instructor, find some time to really stick your head in the clouds. Guys and gals out there, back me up on this. Please let everyone else know that it is night and day difference between what the foggles show you or a hood shows you and what it is flying in an actual cloud. When you've stuck your head legally in an actual cloud, you understand how an accident like this could happen, because it happens in a matter of seconds. How quickly spatial disorientation can really sneak in. It happens. Corey says, no comparison between foggles and being in the real soup. Cameron says, oh, so true. Definitely different, says Steve. Thank you, Colin. Absolutely. It is truly so different. So if you're a lot of my private pilot guys will take a day where we'll file IFR so they can truly fly in a cloud. So they learn to respect what it's like flying in a cloud, and to give them some encouragement to go on and earn their instrument rating. Let's keep moving forward here. We've talked about fuel. We've talked about weather-related accidents. Let's talk about the one that owns the category for just accidents in general. Not so much fatalities, but owns the category for just general accidents, and that is landing. Look at our landing accident trend. Again, it's going down, but so is the general accident trend as well. As there are less hours flown, we should overlay this properly with number of hours flown that year in general aviation. That's always just kind of an estimate type number, but we can get close with that. But what is the large category here? Loss of control. Remember this word because it's going to come up a lot. Stalls is big. Hard landings is kind of a big category. Runway conditions is a big category, but categories that you would think would be bigger aren't, like bird, or animal strikes on the runway here. Short landings don't make up a lot of that. Let's look now at takeoffs here. How about takeoffs? Wait, let me go back a second because there's something really different between these two charts here. Look at the fatalities here. Yeah, let's go back. On landing, the accident count is much higher, yet the fatalities aren't there. Look at takeoff and climb out. We get still a lot of accidents, right? But a lot more fatalities. Yet I've been taught and I've been hearing so often that, man, that base to final turn, you've got to be so careful. Base to final turn, Jason, because you could stall spin and you could hurt yourself. And absolutely that is true. But if you look at the data, it shows that, yes, there's a lot of accidents, loss of control accidents, but not as many fatalities as we have on takeoffs and climb out. Is the stall spin scenario more dangerous in a takeoff configuration than it is in a landing configuration? Just something to wrap your brain around. Think, we spend so much time fretting and sweating over the landing, that are we devoting as much mental energy to the takeoff and climb out when we have the stats to say it has a higher probability of accidents or fatal accidents in this case when you look at the actual data? It's fascinating. Let's look at a little bit more of this chart on the right here. The biggest category is what? Loss of control. Next biggest, stalled or settled on takeoff, right? I rotate too early, I come back, I end up stalling the airplane, whatever it may be. Then we get to some other stuff, weight, down over here, delayed abort of it, trying to put it back down, collided with an object is a category here. Stalled during climb isn't a big one, but I have a funny feeling that that's very specific because loss of control is so general, it could make up a lot of things here. So let's actually review some accidents here. And the two videos I've chosen to show and share with you are two very popular videos that you've probably seen on YouTube, or AOPA shared a lot of them. I've shared these before and done some presentation on these before. So perhaps you've seen them here. But let's start. Let's go from takeoff into landing here. And what you're seeing right here is a gentleman flying a Stinson. 4 people in this Stinson right here out of Idaho. Look at the mixture knob, by the way, for me real quick. Did you catch that real quick? Did you see that mixture? It'll show it again here relatively quick. It's the summertime. I've got 4 people on board. Density altitude today is about 6,000 feet. I'm going off of a strip that's a little dirt, a little grass, a little bit of everything. I got mountains here, density altitude 6,000 feet. I'm fully loaded. I just picked up these hikers. They probably have their hiking gear, and they're going to try to get on and out of here. Does that sound like the start of an NTSB report to me when I say it that way? We're still on the ground, by the way, mind you, as we're rolling, rolling, rolling. The pilot said this magical gust of air kind of picked him up and set him back down. As you can see now, he's kind of flying for a second, flying for a second, flying, and right about here, there it is. We're back down on the ground again. We rotated for a second, now we're back. Now we're off the airport. We're in some farmer's field right now, just rolling down, trying to rotate. And by the way, there's these big old mountains in front of us. There's some drainage now to our right, like a little retention area, but now we're flying, thank goodness. Yet if you look at it, we're not exactly climbing. And what do you see to the left? What do you see to the right? I see some real big old mountains here. How many of you would have aborted this takeoff, about 10,000 feet ago? I would imagine it's most of us here watching this. We're going, but let me ask you this. We're committed to this. Well, we're not really committed. I could put it right back down in the same farmer's field and live to fly another day, but where would you go if this was the case? Well, I wouldn't go to the left because there's the big old mountain over there. I'd maybe go a little bit I'd kind of keep going straight because I see a lot of field that way, but this pilot decides now to kind of start making a turn to the right here. But what do you see to the right? Not only mountains, but I see some big old trees over to my right here. And we're heading on over towards these trees, and we're trying to climb. And we're trying to climb, and it's just not working in this case. We're holding on, and then he kind of, look at how the angle of attack, it's just he's fighting to climb, but really in this high density altitude situation, picking the nose up more is actually just going to cause you to sink more and more. As you're going to watch this beautiful Stinson aircraft is going to just start to settle into those trees, as those trees are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we're coming on down, and you'll see the pilot really starts to realize that you're going to see that nose get higher and higher as he tries to save it, but it's too late. Here come the trees as we now slowly descend, very much just a controlled crash, right on into the trees. All four on board were okay. You can see very lucky to be okay when you look at it that way, huh? To have how the trees were really spaced out really helped them a lot in that case. You look at a situation like that and you think that didn't need to happen. I could tell you, this is youth speaking hypothetically, I bet you could tell me the first sentence of that NTSB report. The pilot departed when the density altitude was 6,000 feet with full fuel, 4 passengers on board from a airport, Bruce Meadows Field, if you want to look it up. It's a lengthy airport, but it's all dirt out there. And where are we going with this? You can see how that is what ends up unfolding in that case. The pilot had to kind of be the bad guy and let's say, listen, I'm going to leave 2 of you here and I have to come back for you. And it's going to hurt my profit margins. I know it's going to make you late for your next hiking trip, whatever it may be, but you know what? You're going to get there. And we're not going to have to call the NTSB or the FAA or anything else like that. We have to learn to make smart decisions. How many of you, when departing a new airport or departing on a day where you know, man, it's hot today, or I've got 4 people and full fuel on board, I know this is going to be a long takeoff. I've run the numbers in my POH, and I know it's going to be, I know I've got the runway, but how many of you have ever been in a situation like that and set up an abort point? I try to do this almost every single takeoff, that if I'm not off by taxiway Juliet, I'm aborting. If I'm not off by this sign over here, Larry shared with me a story that there's a grass strip, I believe it's Napoleon, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, that Larry would fly out of in Michigan. It was just a tiny little grass strip. And they would actually land, they would shut the airplane down, first off, to push it all the way back so they could use every bit of runway, like hanging over the neighbor's fence just about the tail was. And then Larry would break a stick off a tree and march out to what he knew was like the halfway point. And he'd put that stick right there in the ground and tie something to it so he could see it when they're traveling down the runway and say, if I'm not off by this point, we abort. And man, when you instill that in your students, when you think ahead of the game and say, listen, that I'm giving myself a way out, accidents like that just don't happen. It makes it so much easier when you predetermine that point here. Let's look at another one, a very popular one I imagine you've seen now, related to landings. Coming into a place we all want to go to, right? St. Bart's. Coming on in, you're in a multi-engine aircraft. Geez, you're coming on in. It's already a short strip. You're a little bit high. You're a little bit fast. It's an intimidating strip. It's over this hill, as you can see here, and then really kind of drops down on in. You still have to have a point where you say, if my wheels aren't down by, hey, how about that taxiway to his right? Taxiway Charlie, I can read it right now. I'm going around. Well, he touches down just in front of the 1,000-foot markers, tries to lock up the brakes, ends up veering to the right, and ends up, his vacation starts a little bit early, going swimming, as you can see right there. Beautiful, I believe it's an Aztec. And again, look at all the other skid marks on that runway. You can see them all from a lot of people who've done the exact same thing. How many of you here aren't ashamed to go around in that case? You see it, you're high, you're fast. To this pilot, I imagine it's a new runway, a first time coming in there. You can never be ashamed, afraid, embarrassed of going around. It's one of the smartest things you can do. In fact, when I do check rides with students, and every check ride examiner will tell you this, that don't be afraid to go around. Showing that you have the maturity to go around on a check ride when you know you're not going to hit your point on your short field lander, or it's a really sloppy approach. Having that maturity to go around is actually a check in the right box on a check ride. Examiners love to see that. Now, don't get me wrong, you can't go around 4 times and keep coming around. There may be a problem at that point, right? But showing once, twice that you have the maturity, listen, this isn't looking good, I would go around, and I'm going to execute that right now. That shows maturity on a check ride. It shows you're that smart, safe pilot. And after all, that's what we're really after. So we've covered fuel management. We've covered weather. We've talked about takeoffs and landings. The power of just going around. That power of having that point where I say, if I'm not off by this point, I'm aborting. If I'm not down by this point, I'm going around. Establish those ahead of time. And you can do that. Just you can get on Google Earth and say, if I'm landing this runway, I want to be down by this taxiway. If I'm coming this way, down by this building here. Whatever it may be, you can work that information out ahead of time. But now I have a question for you. What are, and again, you can just reply in the Facebook comment box. I can see all of this. What are your aviation safety goals for 2017? Maybe you're like most. Maybe it's simply, I just want to fly more. Maybe you want to go out. Maybe for you, it's to earn another rating or another certificate. Perhaps for you, it is just to keep learning. What are your safety goals? What are your 20? This is January. This is a great time to set this up and say, what do I want next? What am I after? How can I get the most out of 2017 to make me that safe aviator? I'm a read some here. Corey wants to learn something new every day. Paul says he wants to practice more. Absolutely. Nathaniel says fly more and get your CFI. That's awesome, my friend. Absolutely. Mike, thank you for that. Become more comfortable in new planes, says Colin. Fly more often. Get his private pilot, says Andrew. Russ says keep learning. Fly more. Stay safe. Absolutely. Start IFR. Practice the basics, says Dave. Safe and knowledgeable, Patrick. Absolutely. These are all great goals to have, great things to pursue. How can we work to commit you to that? So I want to share something else very, very cool with you all while I have you. And I know it's getting late. We'll wrap this thing up here. But if 2017 is your year to get a written test or to get a check ride done, please let us be your guide. I do this promotion once a year. And I've never done it like this before. So if you're a current online ground school member of ours, listen up. And if you're not, you can become one and enjoy this promotion. Our online ground school members, effective today, actually literally just set it up today, as a late Christmas present to you all, are going to get all of my books for free. As you can see, and we can show it on the screen there, pass your private pilot check ride, pass your instrument pilot check ride, In-Flight Emergencies. This is not only the In-Flight Emergencies book, but this is also the 20-video In-Flight Emergencies course, where I go through VFR and IFR emergencies and really work to break them down from hypoxia to VFR into IMC to lost comms, VFR and IFR, lost procedures. All this is broken down in just great videos for you all. The FAR in plain English, The Secret of Perfect Landings, The Pilot's Handbook for Aeronautical Knowledge, The Airplane Flying Handbook. $355 of value, free. And I'm doing that just for the month of January. So online ground school members, please get in there and download all this stuff. Now they're all ebooks or HD videos for you to download their videos, so you have that there. And if you're not an online ground school member, you can go to groundschoolacademy.com, like you see on your screen there, to go ahead and check that out. Consider becoming a member today to take on that written test, that knowledge test, that check writer. Just live out that good pilot is always learning mantra. You see, our online ground school is a complete private instrument, and now commercial pilot as well is up in there. We do weekly member-only webinars as well. So if you like this webinar, every Monday night I do a private webinar just for members where you see us here in the studios. We get a chance to chit-chat. It's a much smaller environment, so we really get a chance to chat with you all and do just that. You also get our crazy guarantee, which is pass your check ride or I'll pay for it. Something I'm very proud to say, out of literally tens of thousands of check rides, I've only had to redeem that twice. I've only had to write 2 checks on that. If you fail your check ride after completing our online ground school as a gold member, I will refund you your check ride fee, which in some places is $600. So that's a serious guarantee we stand behind. It is written or knowledge test and check ride prep, and of course it's our flight training mentorship and community. If you love the way I teach, maybe it's the plain English style. You say, man, Jason explains things in a way that the books don't or my instructor can't, whatever it may be. Let us be that asset. Let us be that guide to really work and help you through that process. So if you go through, and you can do it any time in the month of January, you can do it tonight, become an online ground school member. And it can be anywhere. We have 4 levels of membership: bronze, silver, and gold. Gold's obviously the highest level where you get the webinars, the guarantees, all that stuff. You could even sign up. Maybe you're I just want to be a proficient pilot. You can sign up for our Pilot's Inner Circle. Just $27 a month. You get access to the webinars. You get access to this killer deal right here to get all these great promotions as well. It is absolutely a no-brainer. groundschoolacademy.com. Click join now, enroll now. You can get signed up and check all of that out. But excited to have you all in there as well. By the way, gold members too get access to our FAA written test prep boot camp. So an entire 12 videos for each, private and instrument, to help you with that knowledge test of where are the trick questions. Because I never want to teach someone just simply, hey, here's the right answer, go memorize it. Like, that's not, we call it the written test so much, but it's truly a knowledge test is what it's geared around, right? So I want you to have that knowledge. I teach you the why in there. I'll never teach you just memorize stuff. I always teach you the why. Yes, you're going to pass your knowledge test with flying colors. Yes, you're going to pass your check ride with flying colors. Most importantly, we're going to make you a safe, real-world pilot. And myself and this great team here are here just to really champion you and mentor you into that pilot you desire to be. So if that's something you want to pursue, check it out, groundschoolacademy.com. Consider becoming a member at any level, truly. Look at the table to see what's right for you financially, what features you need, and everything else to get access to this killer deal as well. And once you're a member, it's just groundschoolacademy.com/books, plural, BOOKS. Once you're logged in, you'll be able to access that page and start downloading that, groundschoolacademy.com/books, to do that, to check that out. Anyways, I am going to sit down for a bit here and take some questions. Aiden asked any CFI course. Aiden, we are in the process of filming our CFI course, so you'll be able to check that out here relatively soon. I see Ahmed asked the same question. FOI is done. Matt, is FOI up, though, or are we still we're close, probably? I'd imagine it's, oh, sorry, Matt has headphones in. He can't even tell. He's listening on delay. FOI course done, Matt? Or kind of close? We're probably like a week or so out from having, FOI videos are done. It's getting the questions in. So FOI's Fundamentals of Instruction, that'll be up. And that's the thing, too. So as a online ground school member, you become a member, you get access to all the courses, private, instrument, commercial, when CFI's out, when multi-engine's out, Matt's working on a G1000 specific course, all these things, you'll have access to all of that as well. So it's one membership, all those courses. So it's a ton of material. I always say, if you love our free material we put out there on YouTube, you're going to absolutely love the paid stuff. So groundschoolacademy.com. Jeff, that's something we're working on probably late 2017, 2018, talking about A&P courses. Mark, where does Crazy Uncle Larry teach? Well, Crazy Uncle Larry was based up in Ann Arbor at Solo Flight Training. Now he's down here with us. So come on by, and this goes for anybody. If you're ever in the Ocala area, come on by and see the studio. Love to share it with you and everything else. So come on by. Let's see. By the way, this is any questions you have, anything aviation related. I'm always more than happy to talk about it. By the way, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, Secret to Perfect Landing. So I'm doing this all over again Thursday night. So be sure you like the page, go to that Secret to Perfect Landings event. So you tell me you're going, so you get alerts for that as well. And I'll send you an email and post about it as well, so you have it. But just know that I'm doing this again Thursday night at 9 p.m. So you have that. Robbie, thank you so much. John, Greg said thanks for the Flying Again movie. It was great. John and myself appreciate that. The whole team here appreciates that very much here. Again, these are all coming in fast, so I'm going to try to grab a few here. Let's see here. Awesome, Corey. That's great to hear. Appreciate that. Matthew, good question. Any tips for new CFIs? Gosh, I am so passionate about this. Let me grab a sip of my tea here real quick because I can feel my voice going already, and I got to make it a little bit longer here. I am so passionate about, like John, anybody in the studio right now will tell you the amount of work that's gone into this CFI course, because it's a doctorate in flight instruction. It's certainly above and beyond anything you could ever want and need, because reducing the accident rate starts with our flight instructors. So first and foremost, to curb your appetite, I have a CFI podcast, by the way. And this goes for anybody. I have a private, instrument, commercial, and CFI podcast. Excuse me one second. Go on iTunes, type in MzeroA, like you see on your screen there. MzeroA, private podcast, instrument podcast, commercial podcast, CFI, or certificated flight instructor podcast, and listen to that. In the CFI podcast, I talk about everything from dealing with difficult students to the business side of things and everything else in between with that. My greatest tip for you, though, that I can share is being a flight instructor everyone thinks it's all about being a great pilot. And trust me, you have to be a real good pilot, but you have to be a better psychologist than pilots sometimes. As crazy as that sounds, you have to be able to teach the same lesson. And I always use the example of steep turns, slow flight, stalls. Well, to teach someone who's a visual learner, you teach it one way. To teach the engineer who wants to know more about the horizontal and vertical component of lift and how they interact in steep turns, you teach it a different way. To teach it to the kinesthetic learner, you show it to them and allow them to fly the air and do it a different way. You have to be a psychologist to work with each and every student differently, all while breaking it into their language. Like you have to speak different languages to different students, and that is the hardest part. You cannot teach steep turns one way to everybody. It just doesn't work. You have to find each student and how they're going, and that just comes with time. Like I was a bad flight instructor at first. Just being honest with you, we're all like, I feel bad for some of my early students who are like the gophers, like an experiment to figure everything out. And I just buckled down and committed. And there's such a difference. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you've heard me say this. There's such a difference between what happens in a book and what happens in the real world. And I realized very quickly as a flight instructor that I had to be a real world flight instructor. Yes, I taught by the books, but from experience, I shared this as well. And when that moment clicks for you, you can be that flight instructor. You've got to really get into the psychology of education. Too many people, I'll end on this because I know I'm missing a lot of great questions, but I really love this topic. Thank you for this question. If you take FOI seriously, fundamentals of instruction, you'll end up being a great flight instructor. Too many CFIs just go in and just memorize. It's a small question bank. It'd be very easy to memorize. It's an easy test. There's no reason you shouldn't get 100 on the test, because it's a common sense test. But if you study for it with how can I benefit my students, how can I create great lesson plans out of this, you'll succeed every time, my friend. And that's just, hopefully you feel and hear that passion coming through, because that is a topic. I love the topic of making great flight instructors, because great flight instructors make great private pilots and instrument pilots, and it continues. Changing aviation safety doesn't start, doesn't happen overnight. It starts with the flight instructors, and it trickles over the next 10, 20, 30 years, because we start with great flight instructors today. That's what we're passionate about. Let's see. Greg asked the website. John, can we put the website back up? groundschoolacademy.com. That is, it's just the MzeroA.com, Ground School Academy. groundschoolacademy.com, as you can see there on your screen. Get signed up. Check it all out, even if it's just a Pilot's Inner Circle member, which gives you access to the webinars every Monday night. Some great limited content just for you all specifically. There's some really great stuff in there as well to check out with that. Then from there, you click on enroll and everything else. Jonathan, great question. Thoughts on sport versus private? Man, what a day to ask this. Kudos to AOPA, NBAA, EAA, to Gamma, too many organizations to all give praise and thanks to, who work their butts off to get third-class medical reform passed. May 1st, big date. By the way, I'll probably be doing a video. I don't know if I'll do it live or not. I'm doing a video tomorrow with world famous Uncle Larry to get his opinion on everything and what it means to us. But kudos to them. That's huge. So back to your point of what does that mean for sport and private? It just makes sense now to get a private certificate. And this is the problem I have. And I don't know if I shared this publicly yet. And this is just my professional opinion. Everyone doesn't have to agree with it. But I look at it this way. The reason we have third-class medical reform today is thanks to Sport Pilot. Sport Pilot gave us 10 years of data that's saying flying using just a driver's license is just as safe as the guys and gals who go out there and get a medical. So we said, hey, Sport Pilot, thank you so much for this information. We appreciate it so much. You no longer need a medical now to fly some really sweet aircraft. So your Sport Pilot thing will still exist, but we don't need you anymore. We've got that data. Thank you. We don't need a little dirty, if you ask me, in a way, but that's just how it played out. Sport Pilot will still exist as a certificate, but I think it's a dying thing. I mean, flight schools are all transitioning to let's get these guys upgraded to private pilot because it just makes sense to be a private pilot now rather than doing Sport Pilot. They can both be just as affordable. You can still do your private in a Sport Pilot aircraft, by the way. And they're great. They're newer it's great aircraft to do it in. You still can, but having just a sports certificate is, as of May 1st, isn't going to make a whole lot of sense if you're starting fresh. If you have it now, it's fine. You can upgrade when you want, but if you're thinking about starting now, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. It make more sense just to go private. My professional opinion with that here. Let's see. Oh, Greg, beautiful. So don't forget to thank LSA for avionics as well. Yeah, thank you, LSA. Thank you, Dion, for working your butt off to get all that stuff approved as well, to be certified. It is, it's crazy to think that LSA gave us so much, yet it's literally, those of you who are in the industry can see it. It's getting thrown under the rug right now. Like, thank you for all this great data, all this hard work. You're a really fun experiment. We got what we need. It's kind of dirty when you look at that, and not a lot of people will publicly say that. So I apologize if I offended anybody, but I'll always be honest with you. I mean, we're trying to do what's best for aviation. I'm just pointing out where certain things are happening. It's all politics at the end of the day. Let's look at some more. Hey, Gary's ground school member. Yeah, Gary, you're spot on with that. Absolutely. Cool, Dwight. Thank you. Theresa, thank you so much. Excited to have you in the Pilot's Inner Circle. You have a great night as well. Cameron, we will be at Sun and Fun. Ashley, do you know what hangar we're in at Sun and Fun? I want to say D. You can find us in the directory. Yes, we'll be at Sun and Fun, though. We have a booth every year at Sun and Fun. We'll also have a booth at Oshkosh. So come check us out there. Rodman said, any words for student pilots to gain confidence out flying by themselves? Man, I have a great video. Matt, could you find it? That fear of flying solo video we did, and post that. Tag, I think it was Rodman. Tag him in that. If not, you guys will just see it post up there. It's called Fear of Flying Solo, and just some great things you can do to build that confidence, because I struggled with that. I mean, imagine this. It was, hey, Jason, here's the keys. Go ahead and sign out. Go out to the practice area, do some steep turn, slow flight, and stalls today. I'm like, stalls? Solo? You mean without you in the plane, you want me to do stalls? And I was terrified. And to be honest with you, my first lesson, I didn't go out and do stalls solo. I was too scared. I just came back and told my instructor I did stalls solo because I wasn't going to be crazy enough to go out there and do it. I had a fear of flying solo. You want to know another fear I had, just since we're being transparent and honest, is I had a fear of flying to other airports. Do you know why? Because I was scared that I wouldn't be able to pick out which end of the runway was which. by pressing the like button here. Who else has had that? You know, pressing the little thumbs up like button. Who else has had that fear before of, I don't know if that ends 3-6 or that ends 3-6. Which one is which? We've all had that. Hopefully I'm sharing this with you and you're hearing this going, that's me, absolutely. We've all had that fear. We've all had that thought before, haven't we? It's funny to hear, you know, myself sharing that. You know, a 10,000-hour pilot, we've all had the same struggles. And that's why, again, back to that premise of teaching what happens in a book, which says, oh, it's orientated 360, and you see all this stuff. But when you're in the airplane, real-world flying is so different than what happens in the book sometimes. And that's why I try to teach everything to you in just that plain English style for you guys. So that's what it's really really for. Yeah, Michael, you're right. Michael says fixed wing problems. You're right. That is a fixed wing problem, no doubt. Spencer, we're actually just off airport, the studio is, but you can fly into OCF and they all know us, and our airplanes are there, and you can just get the crew car and come over to the studio if you ever want. Great, from Canada, still using the materials. Thank you so much. Yeah, 3-6 left, 3-6 right, Nick. That can be just as confusing, right? Crazy. Sean, any advice on becoming more proficient when talking to ATC, IFR clearance, and route approach file, etc.? Absolutely. Jeez. I will tell you this too. Again, show of hands. Who was terrified to talk on the radios? Who knew flight following was a great service but was scared to use it? I think a lot of us were. And I wish I got better at flight following as a private pilot and used it, because instrument flying is just like flight following, right? It's essentially the way. It's the same kind of structure other than getting clearances and that sort of thing. So a great thing that'll benefit you is liveatc.net. A great service. You can listen to it free on your browser. I don't even know how much it is on the phone. It can't be but $1, $2, $3. It's a cheap app to get on there and start listening to clearance. Listen to ground. Write down clearances as if you were that pilot in that airplane and pretend to read it back to them and practice that way. That'll help you just huge. IFR. You know how to fly the airplane. It's all about talking on the radios and following those procedures, right? That's the biggest part of IFR flying. So liveatc.net will help you a ton. A few others recommend get a portable radio. Derek said it's free on the phone. I didn't know that. I feel like I paid for it. Jessica said it was free. I don't know. Either way, it's so cheap it might as well be free. It doesn't even matter because of what a great resource it is out there. Let's see, yeah, a bunch of praise for Live ATC, as it should be. Clay, thank you. Yeah, we have a VFR radio communications app, which you can find as well. Again, if you just go in the iTunes or in the Android store, and you can search that as well, MzeroA, VFR radio communications, it'll come up. So that'll be cool. Reading some more again. They're all coming in so Jeff says they speak so fast. Controllers do talk fast. I think I talk fast sometimes. I do, but man, controllers, some of them talk real fast. Try flying up in the New York area and everything else. It gets busy up there, and if you're not on your game, they're not going to talk to you. So it gets busy. Is a sim recommended to practice IFR? Absolutely. My goodness, I'm a huge advocate of in-home simulation, whether it's just with X-Plane, a yoke and pedals, and just a basic setup like that, to practice your IFR scan technique, practice VOR navigation, practice shooting approaches. Don't practice things like landings and traffic patterns. Like VFR is not the best environment for that. But absolutely, it's a great environment for practicing IFR type stuff. So it really helps with that, sure. Gary says, learn to fly in the Pewaukee area near O'Hare. So Gary, you're real good on the radios. I can always tell, you know, so you can see it. Liveatc.net for those of you that were asking here. John asks, first plane to buy, a 152, 172, depends on the mission. I've owned a 150, I own a 172, never owned a 152. It depends. I mean, is it just you flying? Because, you know, do you want two seats? Do you need the back seat? I will tell you something here now. And this is, I'll tell you this because we're all friends here. The value of airplanes is going to go up. And I don't mean a little bit, I mean drastically here soon. Because think about it. Think about it from a business standpoint here. May 1st, 172s, 182s, all these airplanes, Cherokee 140s, all this stuff can now be what what should have been light sport aircraft to begin with, these pilots can upgrade and now fly more advanced aircraft than they were previously limited to just the light sport aircraft. There is going to be a huge demand for the basic trainers. If you are thinking about purchasing an airplane, I would highly encourage you to lock something down before May 1st, because I'm going to watch it. My little 172 that I'm putting a brand new paint and interior on, which I'm pumped about, and I'll be sharing shots of that with you guys. If you scroll through our Facebook, you can see shots of it getting done, stripped down, primer, everything else. Airplane values are going to go up if you fall into the category of what's acceptable under this new medical reform, which I'll be talking about more tomorrow. So if you're thinking about buying an airplane, it's an asset right now that's going to appreciate it. You couldn't always say that about an airplane, that it was a true asset. It was more like a boat, like a luxury type item, but it is going to be an asset here very, very soon. Dalton asked when I get my seaplane rating. Just a few weeks ago. And already joined a seaplane flying club, so adding more airplanes to our sort of ownership in a way with that one. So that'll be kind of fun to do. Let me see. Thoughts on transition from sport to private? Jeff, I like the idea, because just to transition to private. I like it because first off, it's an easy transition to do, and I like it because it gets you back in the training mindset, in the training environment, and that's always a win. I mean, the transition from sport to private, you can do it for less than $1,000 in some cases. The biggest expense is going to be that cross-country time and the check ride, because you already know how to fly an airplane. It's going to be a fun little upgrade for you. So don't need to go out and do it tomorrow, Jeff, but hey, your flight review's coming up. Instead of doing a flight review, let's just upgrade to private. That's a fun way to do it, and a way to really accomplish something. It's like I went out and got my seaplane rating. I think it was $1,300 to do that, to fly a 1940s Piper Cub on floats. That's amazing. When you look at the value to have that skill set now to do that. You can't put a price tag on that. Instead of doing a flight review, let's go out and actually learn something. When's the last time you learned something on a flight review? A lot of times just a formality. You just got to watch that sort of stuff. Brad, you're spot on. Tailwheel. My goodness. If everyone started in a tailwheel airplane, we'd all be safer pilots. Brian, you can't tempt me with links to controller here, because I click on them. And Ashley's on this webinar, and she's going to know that I'm buying stuff. She already tells me I spend too much money. So you can't tempt me with airplanes here. Jeff asked, do I think they will extend the ADS-B deadline? Jeff, I think they have to. Did you see our last video where I was talking about if everybody went tonight to start their ADS-B install, every avionics shop in the country would have to do 8 per day to meet the demand by 2020. It's not going to happen. They're going to have to extend it. I wouldn't bet on it that they extend it. It's a catch-22. I would hope that you would be doing your ADS-B upgrade this year, or at the latest, like this time next year. You don't want to wait. And yes, I know that technology is going to get better. Yes, I know that technology is going to get cheaper. But I also know that those avionics shops are going to fill up, and they're going to get super busy, and you're not going to be able to just get in there and even get that time slot in there. So you got to be careful with that as well. Let's see. Congrats to Vincent. Passed his check ride. Thanks to the ground school. Helped so much, Vincent. Congratulations, my friend. That is huge. Awesome, awesome work. Ashley, let's make sure we get that information on to Stacy as well here. Let's see. Let's take a few more here. Ryan, thank you for that. I appreciate that as well. Let's take a few more questions here. That I got to wrap this thing up because it's getting late. And I got to get home, rest up to do some more videos tomorrow. And then Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, doing the same thing again, Secret to Perfect Landings. Pastor Willie, we can work on that. I think that's a great idea. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Jim, good to see you on here, my friend. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Multi add-on before or after CFI? Austin, I went this route. I went private instrument, commercial, CFI, multi, CFII. I knew that it's hard to make money as just a commercial pilot. And I knew I wanted to get instructing real quick. So I went out, I got commercial, went to CFI, then added my multi, then added on II. But I was doing my multi and taking on students and everything else at the same time. I knew I knew my passion was in instructing, and I wanted to get doing that as soon as possible, and I saw that as my quickest ticket to start making some money in flying rather than shelling money out so much too. So I went that route is how I did it. Paulo asked advice for Class Bravo flying. Live ATC goes with that. Start listening to those approach controllers. Understand the magic words of Cessna 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever your tail number is, cleared in Class Bravo airspace. Know and understand that as well. Live ATC will help you a ton here. Awesome, a lot of praise. Thank you guys so much. So glad you enjoy Best Flight Simulator. I use X-Plane. We're all Apple-based though, so X-Plane works for us. X-Plane, yoke, pedals. You have to at least have the yoke. You don't necessarily need the pedals, but yoke for sure. So. Listen, guys, let's wrap this thing up here. I can take more questions via email, and I'll continue to read these comments as well. Hey, Howard, good to see you. Excited to come back to Pineville this year, hopefully, if you invite us back. Let's continue this conversation maybe in the comments. I'll check them in the morning when we wake up. And then again, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, doing the Secret to Perfect landings as well. So thank you to all our new members who signed up. Just so blessed. So excited to have you all on board and really just be your flight training mentor through this entire journey. That's really what we're after to help you with this. So thank you so much. I really mean it when I say you guys are the reason we get up so early, stay up so late, do all the crazy things we do. Well, it's to make you a safer, smarter pilot. Thank you for being a blessing to myself, my beautiful wife, Ashley, our gorgeous daughter, Ella, this great team here at MzeroA.com. If there's anything at all we can do this week to help make you a safer, smarter pilot, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and most importantly, remember that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great night, guys. See ya.